All right, there we go.
All right. We're returning from our executive session in which no votes were taken. What's the rest of that? Is that the full language? Am I missing something? Good conversation where we received legal instruction. Further conversation in open session might be needed. There are a couple of things that I wanted to mention in regard to the ordinance and the discussion around surfing is that in talking with Folly Beach, they only have, it sounds like they have franchise agreements with three providers, and then they have maybe only 4 other instructors who are doing surf lessons. So I don't think that we are going to be looking at, and especially if we're adding these restrictions around safety certification and insurance liability, I don't think we're going to be overrun with people applying. We are also imposing a 2-hour instruction limit. So I think administratively, this is going to be doable. And I think it will be good to have in this initial year some city council oversight. One thing that I would like to see is I think it would be good to have within the ordinance that city council has the ability to limit the number of instructors and providers without putting a set number due to I don't know that we have to say due to safety. I think it should be due to safety and any concerns about over commercialization, but I don't know if we need to spell that out. As we just, I would also like to see that we make it clear and clear up any potential loopholes that might allow for someone to have a workaround where they are creating a camp-like situation by handing off from one instructor to another. But I don't know that any of that requires us to vote on it if other members would like to discuss. And
No.
any further conversation? If that sounds good to you, is that something that we need to vote on, or can staff make sure that we fix that language, add that language?
Well, I think Susan, if you mind.
Yes.
Yeah, if we, I think the language as it's written is good. I don't think it'd be hard for additional language. If everything's can be approved at council level, I think all those things can be made. So those adjustments or the number of folks that like I said, if we get a large number of applicants, then we can, obviously we have the ability to limit that by approving or not approving the number of applicants. So I think, and I think it gets back into administratively. I think if we have, what if, 4 people start a surfing company and that takes up 4 spots, those same 4 people decide, what, they got a better job somewhere else and they're not doing it anymore, then so it's still continuously administrative, and we want to make this thing as easy as possible.
True.
Stick it out there, and as easy as possible for our administration to handle this. So.
And I think maybe part of our marching orders for our staff is to come up with a workable arrangement for how we are going to administer this outside of the ordinance. So if we could definitely have that, it would be great even to have that ready in case it comes up in council conversation with full council, but we can definitely review more in depth at our next committee meeting. Does that sound good to everybody?
Yeah. So Susan, don't we need a motion to approve as written this current ordinance?
I guess, or as written with additional changes that we've discussed.
Yeah. So I'll make that motion.
Okay. All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
We do need a second for that motion before we can vote on it.
I did.
I think
Ryan
Ryan
did.
Okay, sorry.
Okay. And thank you, Jim, for being here
Jim,
with
thank
us.
you.
Thanks, Jim.
All right, so moving on to discussion of outlook. We're going back to item A under old business, discussion of outlook for classes and activities in the spring. We, I think, really have covered it in the departmental report, unless there's anything else to add, Norma Jean.
I have nothing to add. If anybody has questions, I'll try to answer those, or any suggestions, we can go there as well.
Wouldn't even know where to start, Norma Jean.
Some days I don't either, so there you have it.
And probably the same goes for item B. We have, I think, discussed all of the adjustments and impact. Oh, I did have one question though around that, which is you and I had discussed the possibility that the rec could maybe do a vaccination event, and that you had bounced that around or talked about that possibility with Roper. Where any developments along those lines?
Not yet. Roper is not staffed sufficiently to have another offsite location. I did reach out to Joe at Delta Pharmacy here on the island. He hasn't received vaccine yet, but I let him know that if and when they do, if he needs a place to administer it, then we would be open for that. So, I've got the door ready. I just don't have anybody coming in yet. So, but we will be available to make that happen if we can.
And I think the advantage in that might be if we can somehow facilitate, especially for senior citizens who are maybe not tech savvy, the scheduling of appointments, and because even if the potential for doing it around a teenager's time when you would be meeting anyways, that it just might help them to get access.
Right.
Where we've seen some stumbling, not here. I mean, in a broader sense, we're obviously seeing national and local examples of people who are struggling to line up their shots.
Okay.
Any other related to COVID-19? Any questions? All right. We've already handled item C under old business. Under new business, item A, discussion of potential partnership opportunities for recreation activities such as kayaking and paddleboarding. And I asked for this to be on the agenda. I specifically wanted to zero in on the Exchange Club. And it has come up in our conversation previously that there could be opportunities for partnership there, since they have a dock and are allowing, my understanding is, for people to launch from their, I guess, members, but also they're inviting different groups. And I think that they have approached, well, I'm not sure if they officially have approached us, but anyways, there's been some earlier conversations. I don't know if there's been any advancement on that, if staff could speak to that, or get a temperature reading from the other members about pursuing this.
We haven't had any dialogue with them lately. When they first started building the dock, we did have some dialogue, but that's as far as we've gone. I haven't talked with anybody since then.
All right. And rest of our council, rest of our committee, how do you all feel about that, pursuing that more actively this year to try and make something happen? Ryan, I believe you're a member of the Exchange Club, and maybe you could help facilitate some of those conversations.
Yeah, we can. The Exchange Club, it really hasn't met due to COVID. We haven't had any, they've had some executive board meetings and some other things going on, but they really haven't met so far.
Okay.
And
Well,
Susan, I guess that's assuming we're not going to have a city dock. I mean, is that where your head is?
No, actually, I think there's room for both. I mean, I would love to see a real enthusiasm for paddle sports that we cultivate. It doesn't have to be at one particular locations. I think they could complement each other, to where we're providing, they're different places to put in, honestly, that might allow for different opportunities, for people to mix it up. And, you can only, I mean, I love going over to, you know, Morgan Creek, but after you've done that 10 times, you might want to go somewhere else
No, I'm with you.
without having to go to Capers. So there's some other opportunities. I just think that is something that would be wonderful if our community really embraced, and to give as many opportunities as possible. The Exchange Club has expressed interest in the past, and so I think we need to look more seriously at that. Any other thoughts on that before we ask staff just to try and reach out to them more actively and see what's possible right now? Or obviously, COVID may be an issue, but it is an outdoor activity too. So it is something that I think, could encourage safely for people. All right. Any questions from staff on that? Okay. Moving on to discussion of implementation of coastal environmental science education class. This has come up off and on for a while, and I know you, Norma Jean, have reached out to Audubon, DNR, Clemson Extension, correct? Is that right?
We have, and like everyone, COVID has affected travel and instruction and things of that nature. And I know Carrie continues to reach out to them because we're looking at boating safety classes again. We used to do those often here. We're also, I think I may have mentioned earlier, we've put in our budget, and I'm meeting with DC3 actually today at 10 regarding live streaming and what we need to do to set that up so that particularly during COVID, we could have some of these and folks could safely live stream or be a part of them without physically being here. So we'll continue to search and reach out to those, but right now it just hasn't seemed to work out for us.
Could I suggest that maybe the aquarium or even somebody like Coastal Expedition might have people who would be interested in working with us on that, and might be more available than a government entity like DNR. But and I think that I know the aquarium does outreach programming, so they might be really excited about doing something like that. And clearly they're not that far away.
We work with both of those with our summer camps. I think last year, I don't think they were as active. I think maybe staffing but I know they're on our agenda for this year's summer camp. So
okay.
Yeah, we use those quite a bit in the summers. Okay.
Yes, Philip?
Norma Jean, there's an individual in Wild Dunes that is part of the Conservation League that does a lot of teaching at the high school level. I bet he would be willing to do something if you wanted me to connect you and have a conversation at some point.
That would be awesome. I'd
Okay.
appreciate that. Yes.
Yep, I'll connect you via email today, maybe.
Thank you.
That would be wonderful to have a resident and with some expertise. And what I was hoping for is that this would be something along the lines of could be something along the lines of a class that's more geared towards adults. Our kids are getting a good dose at Sullivan's Island Elementary School of coastal science education. But this would be an opportunity for adults to also be learning and really have an outdoor classroom, I think should be a goal, especially with COVID. So,
Okay.
All right, moving on to our discussion of the fiscal year 2020 10-year capital plan for the Recreation Department.
Hi, Norma Jean, and I will kind of walk you all through our the departmental requests for FY20. In your packets, you have a copy of the first draft of the 10-year capital plan for the Recreation Department. In it, you will see that it includes about $10,000 for replacement of playground equipment. That's only with failure. That's something that we always include as a placeholder for any unexpected expenses. We also have, which Norma Jean referenced earlier, the software to allow online registration and payment. Norma Jean has been doing quite a little bit of work with BC3 and RecTrack to facilitate that for this year. I think we've seen that in the past, we were looking at an expense around $30,000, and a lot of the reason for that big number was associated with the server that had to be on site. And this option would have a cloud-based service, which reduces the cost significantly. That is something that it will not only facilitate the experience of the user and the resident trying to sign up for classes, but it should provide a lot of efficiencies for the recreation staff when signing folks and managing payments that way.
Desiree, a question. We've talked about, is this something more than just getting us to online registration? Is this adding in extra value beyond that?
It does. We have to upgrade our system because we're small and we didn't do a lot of other things. We have to upgrade the total system. So we've been on the same system for a while. This will bring us up to that. This would be helpful. It has a lot of things that we could use, but one, for instance, is the past visit. Let's say that folks that use the cardio room often, we would give them a card. So when they came in, they could scan that card. So that way we could keep attendance. The same thing with our classes and programs. When they come in the morning, let's say we have a class at 8:30, a class at 9, and a class at 9:30, they'll go to that little pad and they'll scan their card and pick the class they go. We have a lot of folks that take several different fitness classes, and this would help us do it the modern way instead of the antiquated way.
Okay.
So yeah, it has a lot of advantages that we don't currently use. Yes.
And that the $10,000 a year for hosting on an annual basis, which is not part of the capital budget, right? Is the annual subscription fee. Do we have any kind of comparable subscription fee right now for RecTrack?
We currently pay $2,000 a year.
Okay.
But we have to have our own server and we have to back it up, and all that lies on us. This way they will host it. They will take care of all that. We don't have to worry about servers. And of course it's maintenance, etc. So.
Well, I will say that right now I spend a lot of time writing about organizations who are using the cloud at Blackbaud. So that is definitely the direction that we're going in.
Right.
Okay. So wonderful. Okay. I'm sorry to interrupt. Go ahead, Desiree.
Oh, yeah. I think, one thing that's worth mentioning is that the net increase for the annual subscription is around 7,000, 8,000, because the $2,000 that we have been paying so far will be included in the 10,000 a year hosting.
Right.
All right, so moving on, we have included $16,000 for replacement of HVAC equipment as needed. We bumped that up from $12,000 based on the most recent HVAC that was replaced at the recreation center, which was around $15,000. We've increased that to $16,000, also as needed in the event that one of them fails. And I do believe that we have two that are pretty old. I think they are original to the building. So it is likely that they'll be needed to be replaced very soon.
Right.
We have $8,000 for replacement of the floor scrubber, $15,000 to upgrade the AV system for live streaming. Norma Jean has also spoken about this, and we also thought that it would be good to have because City Council oftentimes does meetings and conducts meetings at the recreation center. Last year we had a couple of the budget workshops there, and I think folks are already used to being able to connect to see these meetings, and unfortunately we are not able to do that now. So it will not only help the recreation programming for classes for people to connect virtually, but also for City Council meetings and special meetings as well.
And that's a one-time cost, not something that will have recurring costs in the future, right?
That's correct.
Correct.
That's also, we're looking at right now, our Zoom classes, we kind of piecemealed what we're doing and how we're doing it. So I'm going to get them to look at that as well. It's important that our exercise classes, that our instructors are able to see their students,
Okay.
because there is a liability on us if someone isn't doing it right and they get injured. So our instructors are instructing as they do these classes. So we're going to look at that system and see how we can make that a little bit more useful for our instructors.
Cool.
And that number is a placeholder. We are working with VC3 and our IT vendor to try to refine that as we go through the budgeting process. So that number may increase or decrease accordingly once we have more information.
Right.
Great.
So we have $20,000 included in FY22 to construct a platform and install the old public safety building generator at the rec center. You all recall that as part of the PSB rehab, we had to replace a new the generator. However, the generator that was there is usable. It needs a little bit of work, and we think that it could be. It's already at the recreation center. It's in on a trailer, and we would like to connect. Rather than having it as a mobile generator, which after much discussion with our team, it's not feasible and it's not inviting for it to be a mobile generator, and we already have a mobile generator in the city. So we want to construct the platform and just install it and make the connection so that it becomes just rather than mobile, a stationary generator for the rec center, which is the only building in the city that does not have a generator. And we do think and plan as part of our emergency operations plan, the recreation center to be an emergency distribution center in the event of emergency. So that's something that we've been working on for a while to try to equip this building with a generator. And this is a low cost option.
We're recycling,
Correct.
essentially.
Yes.
It's
Love it.
sustainable.
Okay.
We have $15,000. This is a rebudget from FY21 to construct a brick paver sidewalk adjacent to the building. Norma Jean had this idea about creating some similar initiative as we have a front beach where folks can donate to have a brick engraved at the rec center. This would be offset by a hard grant of $6,000 and potentially covered by the cost of the engraving as well.
Okay. Sounds good.
And then the last item that we have is to install commercial grade timers for tennis and outdoor basketball courts. This is a new item that we've included to the capital plan. Norma Jean, if you want to expand on that.
Sure. Currently, the timers for the basketball and the tennis courts are right at the gate between the tennis and basketball courts, and they get, not intentionally, but they get abused. The balls hit them. And what we're using right now are just the ones you get from your local hardware stores. So what I'd like to do is move the tennis court timer around to 28th Avenue, where people actually enter the tennis courts, and move the basketball ones away from the goals. And so we reached out to Musco, who installed our lights, and that would be our vendor, and they would be the ones to rewire and do them like they should have been done to begin with, I guess.
All right. And I'm guessing that will save some time and money when things get broken.
It does.
Otherwise.
The timers break, then the lights stay on all night. And we change timers 3 or 4 times a year because they aren't sturdy enough to stand up to the weather.
Okay. Makes sense. All right.
And then the last item that we have is facilities maintenance. So you all know that this would be the 3rd year that we've been continuing this initiative to address deferred maintenance. And for the recreation department, we've discussed this at length with Norma Jean and Debbie and I about, does the recreation department actually need the 1% of the insured value as a placeholder for maintenance? the rec department is the only department that has a dedicated sort of grounds and maintenance and all of the above staff. It's not a whole lot, but they do have a better handle at maintenance activities in the recreation center and the grounds, and that's why it looks the way it does. However, the building is coming up. It's aging, and we feel like rather than we feel very confident that the department has a very robust maintenance schedule. However, because of the age of the building, we feel like we can be a little bit more proactive ahead of maybe having some issues in the next few years. So we've included here half, 0.5% of the rec department's insured value to assist in these efforts. We'll evaluate it at the end of the year. The first 3 years we have not included anything with in this line item. We'll start with half of it, and then we'll reevaluate and decide whether we need to increase it or 0.5% is adequate for what the building needs.
All right. Any thoughts from the committee members?
Makes sense.
Okay, and that's all for now this is the capital budget. Will we discuss next go round? Do we look at the operating budget more closely? Is that?
Yeah, that is correct. We always start with the capital plan and then go to the operational expenses.
Okay, wonderful. And I think, for right now, this is not a time when we probably want to look at some serious extra expenses with the big question mark of COVID over us. But in the future, I think, we do want to maybe have some more thoughtful conversations about where we can go with the footprint of the rec center and consider, potential new things that we might want to add. But that conversation is probably something to be had down the road.
Did you just dance around the pool question?
No. Well, not just the pool, though. I mean, we've discussed adding other elements. I think it would be great to have a really holistic conversation, but not. Yeah, and that. I mean, we won't be bringing up the pool conversation right this year. I don't believe.
Chair Smith, if I may, if you look at the out years in the 10-year capital plan, it does include the construction of the gymnasium in accordance with the master plan that's included in FY29. Also, the expansion of the fitness room that's included for $675,000 in FY26. I think that part of the conversation that you were saying is, are those expenses included in the right year? Do we want them, does council want to consider early on or later on? So those are there as placeholder to facilitate that kind of conversation.
Excellent. Great. Yes, it would be great if we could expand the fitness center for $675. That would save a lot of hand wringing. Okay. Well, I think looks good for this year. If there's no further comments or suggestions that we need to be doing something more, I think we can wrap that up. And otherwise, we'll just move on to miscellaneous business. Our next meeting date, 8 a.m. Monday, March 1st, 2021. Any other miscellaneous business to bring up?
I think so.
All right, then I think we can entertain a motion to adjourn.
All right, I'll make that.
Second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
All right.
Aye.
You're up.